Hi, I just wanted to answer a few questions that I've been getting on the chapter 26 reading questions. I wanted to do it as a whole so I didn't have to individually email people the same answer. So I just want to go over some of the questions in general that I'm getting. So the first question, what factors contributed to the creation of a military stalemate on the Western Front? So front is a term meaning like sector or side. So the Western Front of Europe, so the location, the countries that make up the western side of Europe, okay? And then how did the Eastern Front differ from the Western Front? So the eastern side, physically, of Europe, the countries that made up the eastern part of Europe, how do they differ from the Western Front? Okay. So and then the third part of the question is why did both the Central Powers and the Allies turn to warfare outside of Europe? So Central Powers and the Allies are two separate groups. So first you need to understand and read about the different countries that made up the Central Powers and then the countries that made up the Allied powers, the Allies. And um, and then turn to warfare outside of Europe. So that can include Russia or the Ottoman Empire. So you're looking at all of that when you're thinking about how to answer question number one. And then question number two, define total warfare. So just straightforward, what is the definition of total war? And then how did governments organize to handle the concept of total war? So the different governments mentioned, how did they uniformly handle it? So was there any similarities across governments like the British government, Germany, Italy, etc.? Or did they handle it, the concept of total war, differently? So that's what you're going to address here in the second question. And then what led to the Tsar's abdication? So Tsar, this would be referring to Nicholas II of Russia. And so what centers of authority existed in the absence of authoritarian rule? So after his abdication, um, what type of authoritarian rule, who was in charge, and things like that. So what centers of authority existed in the absence of his authoritarian rule? And then how did the Bolsheviks seize power? So first understanding who the Bolsheviks were, what their motivations were, and then how did they take control? Okay, so talking about the Tsar's abdication doesn't mean it was done willingly. So you'll definitely address if it was done willingly or if he was forced kind of to remove himself from power. And then number four was World War One the necessary aftermath of the centralization of political authority in Central Europe after 1870. So for this question, first you need to understand what's happening after 1870. So something changed. Um, so the question is asking, was the centralization of a political authoritarian in Central Europe kind of led to World War One? So was World War One the necessary aftermath? Was it going to happen because of the centralizing of political authority within Europe after 1870? So really think of the different isms that you had looked at, hopefully this past week, to think about how to answer this first part of the question. And then how did the peace settlement seek to deal with the question of Central Europe? So what was the peace settlement after World War One, and how did this address the question of Central Europe? Like, meaning, should it revolve around that central authoritarian political rule within the different countries? So make sure you address that here first, noting what the peace settlement was, and then how it specifically handled central political authority in Europe here. Okay. If you have any other questions, please let me know. We'll continue to look at the things leading up to World War One this week. We'll also be looking and comparing the second um, Industrial Revolution. I'm going to post a chart for you to complete, and then I'll review it with you guys, probably in a video like this towards the end of the week. And then we'll really get into hashing out World War One and then comparing it to some other periods. Let me know if you have any other questions. Thanks. Bye.